Good evening and welcome back to another episode of The Longing, where today we will be continuing to read The Golden Age by Kenneth Grahame. So, let's get going. This was too much, and my jaw dropped as I struggled to grasp the fact that I was sitting there talking to a fellow who lived in Rome. Speech was out of the question. Besides, I had other things to do. 10 solid minutes had I already spent in an examination of him as a mere stranger and artist, and now the whole thing had to be done over again, from the changed point of view. So I began afresh, at the crown of his soft hat, and worked down to his solid British shoes, this time investing everything with the new Roman halo. And at last I managed to get out. "But you don't really live there, do you?" Never doubting the fact, but wanting to hear it repeated. "Well," he said good-naturedly, overlooking the slight rudeness of my query, "I live there as much as I live anywhere, about half the year sometimes. I've got a sort of shanty there. You must come and see it some day." "But do you live anywhere else as well?" I went on, feeling the forbidden tide of questions surging up within me. "Oh yes, all over the place," was his vague reply, "and I've got diggings somewhere off Piccadilly." "Where's that?" I inquired. "Where's what?" said he. "Oh, Piccadilly. It's in London." "Have you a large garden?" I asked. "And how many pigs have you got?" "I've no garden at all," he replied sadly, "and they don't allow me to keep pigs, though I'd like to, awfully. It's very hard." "But what do you do all day, then?" I cried. "And where do you go and play, without any garden or pigs or things?" "When I want to play," he said gravely, "I have to go and play in the street. But it's poor fun, I grant you. There's a goat, though, not far off, and sometimes I talk to him when I'm feeling lonely. But he's very proud." "Goats are proud," I admitted. "There's one lives near here, and if you say anything to him at all, he hits you in the wind with his head. You know what it feels like when a fellow hits you in the wind?" "I do, well," he replied in a tone of proper melancholy, and painted on. "And have you been to any other places?" I began again, presently, "besides Rome and Picky what's-his-name?" "Heaps," he said. "I'm a sort of Ulysses, seen men and cities, you know. In fact, about the only place I never got to was the Fortunate Island." I began to like this man. He answered your questions briefly and to the point, and never tried to be funny. I felt I could be confidential with him. "Wouldn't you like," I inquired, "to find a city without any people in it at all?" He looked puzzled. "I'm afraid I don't quite understand," said he. "I mean," I went on eagerly, "a city where you walk in at the gates, and the shops are all full of beautiful things, and the houses furnished as grand as can be, and there isn't anybody there whatever. And you go into the shops and take anything you want, chocolates and magic lanterns and indurable balls, and there's nothing to pay. And you choose your own house and live there and do just as you like, and never go to bed unless you want to." The artist laid down his brush. "That would be a nice city," he said. "Better than Rome. You can't do that sort of thing in Rome, or in Piccadilly either. But I fear it's one of the places I've never been to." "And you'd ask your friends," I went on, warming to my subject. "Only those you really like, of course. And they'd each have a house to themselves. There'd be lots of houses, and no relations at all unless they promised to be pleasant, and if they weren't, they'd have to go." "So you wouldn't have any relations," said the artist. "Well, perhaps you're right. We have tastes in common, I see." "I'd have Harold," I said reflectively, "and Charlotte. They'd like it awfully. The others are getting too old. Oh, and Martha. I'd have Martha to cook and wash up and do things. You'd like Martha. She's ever so much nicer than Aunt Eliza. She's my idea of a real lady." "Then I'm sure I should like her," he replied heartily. "And when I come to— what do you call this city of yours? Nephelo something, did you say?" I don't know," I replied timidly. "I'm afraid it hasn't got a name, yet." The artist gazed over the downs. The poet says, "Dear city of Cesarops," he said, softly to himself. "And wilt not thou say, dear city of Zeus?" "That's from Marcus Aurelius," he went on, turning again to his work. "You don't know him, I suppose. You will some day." "Who's he?" I inquired. "Oh, just another fellow who lived in Rome," he replied, dabbing away. "Oh dear," I cried disconsolately. "What a lot of people seem to live at Rome, and I've never even been there. But I think I'd like my city best." "And so would I," he replied with unction. "But Marcus Aurelius wouldn't, you know." "Then we won't invite him," I said, "will we?" "I won't if you won't," said he. And that point being settled, we were silent for a while. "Do you know," he said presently, "I've met one or two fellows from time to time who have been to a city like yours. Perhaps it was the same one. They won't talk much about it, only broken hints now and then, but they've been there sure enough. They don't seem to care about anything in particular, and everything's the same to them, rough or smooth, and sooner or later they slip off and disappear, and you never see them again. Gone back, I suppose." "Of course," said I. "Don't see what they ever came away for. I wouldn't. To be told you've broken things when you haven't, and stopped having tea with the servants in the kitchen, and not allowed to have a dog to sleep with you. But I've known people too who've gone there." The artist stared, but without incivility. "Well, there's Lancelot," I went on. "The book says he died, but it never seemed to read right somehow. He just went away, like Arthur. And Crusoe when he got tired of wearing clothes and being respectable. And all the nice men in the Stones who don't marry the princess. 'Cause only one man ever gets married in a book, you know. They'll be there." "And the men who never come off," he said, who try like the rest, but get knocked out or somehow miss, or break down or get bowled over in the melee. And get no princess, nor even a second-class kingdom. Some of them'll be there, I hope." "Yes, if you like," I replied, not quite understanding him. "If they're friends of yours, we'll ask 'em, of course." "What a time we shall have," said the artist, reflectively, "and how shocked old Marcus Aurelius will be." The shadows had lengthened uncannily. A tide of golden haze was flooding the grey-green surface of the downs, and the artist began to put his traps together. Excuse me. Preparatory to a move. I felt very low. We would have to part, it seemed, just as we were getting on so well together. Then he stood up, and he was very straight and tall, and the sunset was in his hair and beard as he stood there high over me. He took my hand like an equal. "I've enjoyed our conversation very much," he said. "That was an interesting subject you started, and we haven't half exhausted it. We shall meet again, I hope." "Of course we shall," I replied, surprised there should be any doubt about it. "In Rome, perhaps?" said he. "Yes, in Rome," I answered, "or picky the other place, or somewhere." "Or else," said he, "in that other city, when we've found the way there, and I'll look out for you, and you'll sing out as soon as you see me. And we'll go down the street arm in arm, and into all the shops, and then I'll choose my house, and you'll choose your house, and we'll live there like princes and good fellows." "Oh, but you'll stay in my house, won't you?" I cried. "Wouldn't ask everybody, but I'll ask you." He affected to consider a moment, then, "Right," he said. "I believe you mean it, and I will come and stay with you. I won't go to anybody else if they ask me ever so much, and I'll stay quite a long time too, and I won't be any trouble." And with that, we come to the end of the episode. So, I will say my usual thank you very much for joining me today. I hope you all have a wonderful morning, evening, afternoon or night, no matter what time of day it is. Oh my God, Excuse me, the yawn has got me. No matter what time of day it is, I hope you all have a wonderful one of it. And as always, we will be back tomorrow for more of The Longing. Goodbye.